All right, so let's get the ball rolling. Good afternoon, everyone, whoever is joining us. My name is Sebastian 𝐓𝐚𝐮𝐬. I'm the National Sales Manager, and also I have my colleague with me, Dan, who basically is the application engineer who looks after Queensland and Northern Territory. So if you have any questions and you're in this region, please feel free to reach out to Dan. And during this session, I think he will take the first part where he will answer any questions that you have, and then I will take over for the second part of the presentation. So today we are here to talk about the Fronius commercial section. Of course, I'm pretty sure all of you guys have heard that we have a new inverter hitting in the market, or the Australian show, in a few months. What I find very interesting too is some of our sales partner has already mentioned that a lot of people are putting orders in, and we're already looking into next year as an example. So definitely get in touch with your sales partner to get some pricing. So we'll cover that also a bit in the second part of the presentation. But yeah, just to make sure that you can secure some stock there, right? So when it comes to the Fronius commercial solution, when we look at key criteria, when we talk to our customers, we always have those four main pillars which always come when they have a chat with their end customers. So for example, when we have like someone who wants to sell a commercial system to a client, there's always those four main pillars, and those four main pillars are basically reliability, operating expenditure, design flexibility, and the CapEx there. So one thing that we see happening often is really around the CapEx. So that's where we deal the most, right? So when we talk to installers, we always say, hey, we want the best price, right? And we want to have competitive pricing. Then the next part, they make sure that they want to have flexibility in design, right? So that they can use the product in different case scenario. Then, of course, there's the reliability and the quality of the product, which is always, I think, in every conversation is mentioned. And finally, the operating expenditure. I think also Australia within this year has evolved quite in terms of operating expenditure. So when you talk about commercial system, you want to make sure that, let's say, if something happened to the system, you want to fix it as fast as you can and as efficient as you can, right? So that's very important for the end users to understand that by the product selection that you go with, you can just come in and fix the product, let's say the issue as fast as you can. So what is the challenges, I would say, for a manufacturer, right? So that's where it's really good for maybe you guys to see our perspective. For us is to find this middle point, right? To make sure you have this balance is always important, because, for example, you don't want to pay a lot of money just to get, let's say, a lot of flexibility in the product, right? Or you pay a lot of money to get the reliability. You want to make sure you have this balance between those four pillars. And that's how we found that the product can be very successful if you're in the middle there, right? And that's how we basically build the Fronius Tauro inverter. I'm pretty sure a few of you guys who are here with us have seen the inverter in some of our trade show. We also had the chance to have the project manager to come to Australia and ask for feedback. And that's how we designed the inverter. For us, it's not all about having like an inverter. We just pack every feature in it. It's what's very important to you guys. And that's what we call the Fronius Tauro, the smart core. There's all the smart inside, but also hardcore in, let's say, extreme condition. So what makes this inverter very special, the Fronius Tauro? First thing is, of course, we wanted to make sure that the inverter can withstand, let's say, really we say unprotected outdoors, but in general, like very harsh weather conditions. So we want to make sure that the inverter, especially in Australia, gets really warm, like a lot of dust. Dan was mentioning storms and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that you have something which is there, which is very robust, right? We have a special option which is called the AC daisy chaining, which is very unique. This is not in any other inverter. We wanted to make sure that in terms of installation, you guys, I'm pretty sure, are familiar with our Snap inverter. So ease of installation is crucial, servicing is crucial, and of course, we want to make sure there's all the monitoring with the inverter. And finally, which is one of the big conversation, which is the cost reduction, right? So want to make sure that the overall cost of the system is brought down. right? So that's what we're going to cover today, what makes this inverter special, some of those key features, and how you guys can optimize the whole system. So before we go into those options, let's see what is available for you guys. So the first one is the Fronius Tauro 𝐄𝐿. As you can see, we kept the name the same as the previous inverter that we have with the snap range. So this Tauro 𝐄𝐿 will come into 50 and 100 kilowatt. This inverter will have one tracker, and you can see also the MPPT voltage range, right? So 50 and 100. So then after that, if, for example, you have some roofs where you can't do even strings and you need, let's say, more trackers, that's where you will have the Fronius Tauro. So there's no 𝐄𝐿 with it. So the Fronius Tauro will come into 50 kilowatt. And from there, you will have, let's say, wider MPPT voltage range. And also this one will have 3 tracker, right? So how do we see it is basically doing a mix of those 2 inverters where you need it. In general, when you're talking about commercial system, I would say that's where usually you will use the Tauro 𝐄𝐿 the most, because if you look at roofs, usually it's clear, or you have east-west. So definitely we can tackle that with our Tauro 𝐄𝐿, pretty straightforward there. So of course, we talk about the options. So let's go into one of those key pillars that was mentioned before, right? So we mentioned about reliability, and I'm pretty sure all of you guys who have used our product, you know how this is important for Fronius. And we certainly don't want to, let's say, jeopardize this whole reliability. This is why we are very well known to have long-lasting components, right? And how do we achieve this? Of course, I'm sure that you guys have heard that at Fronius, we basically manufacture everything in-house, right? So we get the components all around the world. We basically put all the circuitry by ourselves, but not only that, we test our unit to the next limit, I would say. So of course, you have what the Austrian standard or different standard asks you, but we go beyond that because we know that your product needs to last for a longer time, right? So that's where you have all those different tests available for you. That's what we did also with the Tauro. So we didn't want to stop with, let's say, what we did with the snap. With the Tauro also, we wanted to do really like pushing to the next limit. So here you can see some mechanical strength tests that we did with the inverter, really loading the inverter. We did some EMC tests. As you can see, there's a lot of cabling going on here. And one of my favorite is this water ingression test, right? So basically they took like a water hose and just splashed the whole inverter, and it was very interesting, I would say, just to see how the IP rating on the inverter performs, right? And of course we do the dust and particle tests, because we know that for example, some of those inverters may be installed in those really dusty area or very hot condition. That's where we wanted to make sure that you have everything, let's say, ready to go there. Of course, we don't stop there, right? So you can do a lot of testing in the lab. Of course, what we see at Fronius is we want to make sure we put the inverter in the real world out there and really test it, because there's nothing that can really duplicate what you do in real life, right? Of course, you can do all the standard, all the tests in the lab, but having the unit in the field definitely plays a different role, because you have now live data. Of course, we did it with our snap inverters. That's how we have this reliability side of things. With the Tauro, also, we did the same thing. So we have a system in Greece, which I will show you, that has been running for nearly a year now, a bit more than a year. But also in Australia, we have one which has been running a bit longer than a year. So you can see how those data and getting the product running, getting all those information plays a big part in getting something which is really high quality there. So this is the site in Greece where we had basically 1 megawatt with 13 Fronius Tauro 𝐄𝐿, a mix of 50 and 100. And you can see something pretty special here, which I will explain a bit later on, but just remember this picture, which I will show in the next few slides. But there's something pretty special and unique in this particular picture. Also, we have at our headquarters in Pittenbark, we also have the inverter installed on the roof flat like this, right? So with the inverter flat on the roof, you're saying, okay, you don't have any, let's say, anything around the inverter. Can you install this inverter directly in the sun? definitely this is possible, right? And you can have the inverter performing at full performance, right, up to 50 degrees ambient. So here I'm pretty sure in Australia it doesn't get more than 50 degrees, maybe in some location, but you can install this inverter flat on the roof without any external, let's say, shade covers or anything like that, right? And with this cooling system that we've implemented with the Tauro inverter, it's a more efficient cooling system, right? That's why we can just put it directly in the sun. Not only that, it's also because of this double wall system that we implemented in our inverter. So we knew installers out there would like to have the inverter flat on the roof, or let's say installed on the roof. So we just wanted to give you guys more flexibility. So how does this work? So here you can see a picture. So on the left hand side, so when you look at the inverter on the left hand side, you will see that there will be fans, depending on how, if you have the 50 or the 100. Basically, we suck the air in from the front, and then from there we cool it between those two walls, right? So here you can see this small gap between the inverter, and that's where we get the whole airflow. So that's how we can create this gap and create this efficient cooling system. So as I mentioned, with cooling system, that helps a lot in terms of lifetime of the component. That's why even if it is resi, even if it is commercial, we always have fan in our inverters. Why? Because as a general rule, as soon as you add, let's say, 10 degrees to any electrical component, you reduce the lifespan of the electronics by half, right? And we learned that. We have 75 years experience in power conversion, and I can tell you in all our devices, we have fans. Even on the laptop that you're watching this webinar from, you have a fan inside. Not only for lifespan of the components, it's also with the performance. So we've seen that any, let's say, passive cooling system, so they use just a heat sink to cool the inverter, you can see that they start to derate at an earlier stage compared to an active cooling. And also when you need to harvest the most amount of energy throughout the day, which is usually when it's hotter, so you can see the ambient temperature here, hotter during the middle of the day, that's where the passive cooling system start to derate compared to the active cooling system still performing there. And as I mentioned, you can install it directly in the sun, up to 50 degrees ambient. The inverter won't derate, right? The next part is the Fronius installation flexibility, right? So you want to make sure that when you have this product, you can install the inverter close to the panels, or let's say on the roof, flat on the roof, as mentioned before. So you want to have options available, right? So that's where, of course, you can have the inverter inside, indoor if you want. You can have that outside, directly in the sun, so it's IP65 rated. Then also in terms of height, I don't think anywhere in Australia will be more than 4,000 meters above sea level, but just something to be aware of. Then you have high ammonia location. I would say when you have this type of location, just get in touch with us. If you have like high dusty area or where you have animal stock, just check with us. I know here it's just saying not to put it together, but it really depends where you want to have it. Because I've seen, for example, people already designing with the Fronius Tauro where they said, hey, look, there will be like animals just maybe for an hour there. Can I install it there? So if it is an hour, yeah, it's all good. I would say in general, just check with us, even like high dusty area, just check with us. Then from there, you can get like a green light. Of course, I would say don't install the inverter in your bedroom. I don't know who will install a Tauro in a bedroom, but still, we still need to have it in our presentation there, right? So as I mentioned, the inverter has different mounting options. So you can, of course, install it vertically or at an angle, so you choose. Or if you want, you can have it flat on the roof. And if you ever want it flat on the roof, we sell those two legs, which will help you with the mounting, right? As you can see, it is a bit at an angle. So that's I would say, the important part. All those options where it's upside down on the side or like leaning forward, that's what we don't encourage. I don't know who will do it, installing the inverter like this, upside down. Yeah, I will make sure that I don't walk underneath this, right? So those are the things to avoid, all upside down like that, right? It's just things that you should avoid. In terms of spacing, so just in terms of around the inverter, you need to have like a 50 centimeters clearance, so pretty straightforward. From our perspective, we think that those inverters will be outdoor because, 50 degrees ambient directly in the sun, the inverter will still perform. So why not that outside, right? So again, few options if you want it inside, outside. I have people who wants to have it in a container, for example. I would rather have it outside, but that's just like a preference there. In terms of transportation, that's where it becomes important. In terms of like OHS, we recommend to have 3 people to lift the inverter. We did it in-house, so definitely I would highly recommend that you have 3 people there. Usually we'll transport 3 inverters, so 1, then 2 on top for transportation. And of course, if you want to use like a crane to lift the inverter, that is possible. So you just have like a chain, you have 2 hooks on the left and right side. And in terms of what comes out of the box, so of course we have the quick start guide. We all know how much installer likes to read guides, so that's why we always have it inside the box. We have the wall mounting bracket, so this is the wall, not the one flat on the ground. And then also you have the inverter, which comes out of the box, right? So those are the few things which you can get. So here you can see the wall bracket, which is inside the box. You have different mounting positions, so you can move that as an example. And also you can see at the top here, it gives you a lot of options. So I think that's where it's for different sites. Again, different way, it depends where you're installing the inverter. It gives you a lot of possibilities there. Just to give you an idea of how it is mounted, so here you will see that there's a hook, and you just take the inverter, put it on the hook, and you have 2 screws at the bottom to secure the inverter so that it can't, let's say, get off the wall in a way. So that's how the wall bracket works. If ever you want to install it flat on the roof, those are the legs, and you can see the legs just slide into those 2 features that we have, and you have 4 screws, right? So again, won't show you guys how to put screws in. I think it's pretty straightforward with those pictures there. We have a video to help. So with this video, we just show you how to set up the inverter. Maybe it will lag a bit, but just to show you guys, you have 6 screws that you need to, or 6 holes. And then from there, you just need to mount your wall bracket, as you can see here. And use the drill, 6 screws. And then from there, 3 people, and just hook the inverter on the wall, and the job is done, right? Of course, you have those 2 screws underneath, just put it in place, and yeah, from there, the job is done. So as you can see, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Definitely when we will be on the road, when we will have the inverter, we'll show you guys how we do it live, right? But until we can travel, definitely that's a video which can help your installer. All right, so we spoke about the reliability side of things. We spoke about in terms of installation and location, how you can really optimize this side of things. Let's have a look at the optimization and design flexibility, right? So one thing that comes up quite often is this optimization with one tracker. So people say, hey, I have a commercial jobs, I need a lot of trackers. The question to some of the designers, do you actually need all those trackers? From our perspective, we see that it's kind of, if you look at the inverter market, it's a competition to basically to put as much trackers as they can in an inverter. On the Fronius side of things, we always think of making sure that you guys have the right amount of components and that you use it, right? What's the point of having something sitting there and not doing anything? And also having something sitting there, which also increase your amount of components, which means increase the risk of something that can happen. So the first thing is in terms of performance, right? So people think that, okay, I have 2 different orientation, 3 different orientation, I need to have multiple trackers. The thing is, if you can do the same length of string, you don't really need multiple trackers. And here's the perfect example. We have 5 𝐅𝐫𝐬𝐲, which is a 1 tracker inverter. We use Canadian solar on this side. Each inverter has 5 string and 1 monitoring card to monitor the whole 5 inverters, right? And what was interesting is on one of those inverters, there was like a split on it. So there was like 3 strings facing west and 2 strings facing east. Not only that, what was interesting on this side is some of those panels also had a bit of shading, right? When we look at the data from SolarWeb of all those 5 inverters, we saw that most of them perform nearly the same, right? Even if on one of those inverter had like a split east and west on the tracker compared to the other one where all the panels were facing the same direction. So then we try to understand, okay, how is this possible, right? So if you look at a single tracker inverter, and let's say you have an east-west configuration, that's what can happen. On the right-hand side, you can see that, for example, early in the morning, one side will get 1000 watt per square meter, the other side will get 200 watt per square meter as an example, right? So if one side get more irradiance. From there, one will produce more current than the other one. And when it comes to the inverter, the current gets added, right? So you will get 6 amps. Even if you have 2 trackers, it will be the same thing. The current will get, basically, you will have 6 amps available in a way, right? One thing which will be different is the voltage, right? That's where you will get a bit of losses. The thing is, the losses are very minimal. And what do I mean by that? So here you can see that this string, for example, with 1000 watt per square meters, this is basically the global maximum power point. That's where you get the maximum power out of the panel. So here you can see it's around 33 volt, right? Now, if you look at the west facing at 200 watt per square meter, it's around 32 something, right? You can see the difference is very minimal in terms of the maximum power point, right? And that's how we can really optimize with this inverter. You don't have that much losses because when you come at the perfect voltage at the inverter, we don't need to do a lot of, let's say, work in a way. We don't need to boost or buck. From there, you have an efficient inverter. Okay, you have a bit of losses because of voltage, because your paralleling goes too, but it is very minimal, which you can see from this particular case study, yeah? So that's where it's very interesting. We have way more, I would say, installers who are looking into this. They're basically trying and they can see the result. So, but that's, I would say, a very interesting topic there. All right, so from here, I will pass it to Dan to explain a bit more about this individual solution with commercial projects. So we'll maybe pass it to you, Dan. Just give me 1 sec. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Sebastian. So hopefully everyone can now see my screen. It's the same screen that Sebastian had up. For those of you who might have come in late, my name's Dan Sheehan, and I'm based in Brisbane, Queensland, as an application engineer for Fronius. And yeah, just kind of continue on with the presentation, but keep the questions coming in, and we'll try and make sure we answer all the questions by the end of the presentation. So as Sebastian was saying, there's some great features on the Tauro inverter in terms of active cooling and other features as well. And we've got a lot of flexibility built in to the design of the Tauro inverter, so that you guys can really have an individual solution variety for commercial projects. But before we go into the different versions available in the Tauro inverter, let's just have a look at commercial projects and what the upfront capital costs are for commercial projects in general. As you can see here on the pie chart, you've got your standard costs involved, the upfront costs like your PV module costs, which are 44% in this example, and you have your labor costs at 14%, but interestingly, 33% of the cost is balance of system costs, and the inverter was only 9% of the capex costs. So through having flexibility in the inverter design, you may be able to look at ways to reduce your balance of system costs to bring down the overall cost of the system. So let's have a look at ways you can do that with the Fronius Tauro inverters. So with all commercial projects, you can basically put them into 2 different types. of project. In the design, you have centralized system design, or you can have a decentralized system design. What we mean by that is a good example here. Centralized system design, you see you've got all the PV arrays having like a DC combiner box, and then you have a large DC cable with a longer DC cable run going back to the inverter, with the inverters near the AC connection point. And then the other style of system, your decentralized system design or direct connect, is when the string inverter is near all the PV array and the strings are directly connected into the inverter. So this is probably a more common known about style of system, the direct connect system design, but it may not necessarily be the best option for all designs. You may be able to look at ways you can reduce your balance of system costs by looking at the best design for that site. So with the Tauro inverters, you've got two versions to suit both types of projects. You have the centralized system design style inverter, which is we call a pre-combined version. So you have two sets of large DC cables coming into the pre-combined version, and that's able to take up to 95 mil squared cable. And with the integrated V clamps, you can use aluminium cable on the inverters as well. And then there's the direct connect version, which most people are probably familiar with. You have your MC4 connectors direct into the inverter for all the strings. And we have the string fusing built in to the direct connect model. So for ease of installation, there's no need to worry about string fusing with the Tauro inverter direct connect model. And you've also got flexibility on the AC cable choice as well. You can use single core AC cables, which can be better as the projects get bigger and the cable sizes get bigger. It may be easier to use single core cable rather than the multi-core cable. Multi-core cable is popular for a lot of projects, and so we have that model as well. And then there's also all these different options you have within the Tauro inverter. You obviously got the 50 or 100 kilowatt class, and then you decide on your system topology, whether it's central or decentralized. And then you have the fuses built in for your direct connect model. And then you can look at different types of surge protection devices, which can be built into the Tauro as well. And then on the AC connection side, there is this AC daisy chaining option as well, which I'll go into in a bit. But with the AC daisy chaining, this option would need to be specified for the project up front, and that model with the AC daisy chaining connection would need to be ordered for your project. Whereas with the single core and the multi-core options on the AC cabling, you can actually interchange the AC connection plate there between the two. So to start with, coming into Australia, for ease of logistics and to get some stock into Australia, we decided to start bringing in some stock, and it's actually pretty exciting because the first models are starting to land this month. So you guys are able to go out and look at placing orders on the distributors for this version that's coming into Australia now. So we have both the centralized and decentralized versions. And the decentralized version, we've just put the 20 amp fuses already built in, because that's obviously the most common style used for the panels used in the Australian market. And with the DC surge protection, it has the type 1+2 protection built into the inverter. And the model that's being brought in at the moment is the multi-core AC connection type. So if you want the AC daisy chaining option, this would need to be specifically ordered in. So what is AC daisy chaining? Well, this slide gives you some good info here. You can basically connect up to 4 inverters or 200 kilowatts of inverter together before you have the one AC cable that's going back to the switchboard. So it could be 2 100 kilowatt Tauros or 4 50 kilowatt Tauros connected together in AC daisy chaining the AC cable and then just one mains AC cable connection back to the switchboard. Another good diagram here explains it a bit better. So in standard systems, you're going to have an AC cable. This blue lines are indicating your AC cable connection. Each inverter is going to have an AC cable connected back to the switchboard. But with AC daisy chaining on the direct connect model, you can then just have one inverter connected to the other inverter, the black line indicating the inverter that has the AC cable just connect AC daisy chained into the other inverter. And that way you've halved the number of AC cables that have to go back to the switchboard. So this can be one of those designs that can save on balance of system costs. So yeah, Fronius has looked at flexibility in the Tauro and how we can help with your customized project design to reduce that balance of system. All right, so now we've talked about some of the great features of Tauro and its flexibility. Another thing we like to look at, not just the upfront costs for systems, we like to look at the Opex or ongoing and maintenance cost for all your commercial projects. And obviously a big thing that I think Fronius has done well over the years is had backup service. And we've got a great team based down in Melbourne. The photo here is from celebrating 10 years of the office at Tullamarine. And that's some of the team there. And it's a growing team of people who are there to help you guys out for any Fronius related issues. So this can help out with ongoing service and maintenance through having that good tech support team involved. And we also have the really qualified repair center service team as well. I mean, another great feature we have is the SOS app to help out all the techs and installers. If you are having any fault codes appear on inverters, I recommend using the SOS app to help you out. It can give you a step-by-step process on troubleshooting an inverter to try and resolve the issue on site through the app, using the app, or if need be, it can also take it to the next step where it creates a case with the tech support team. So yeah, I'd recommend that all techs and service guys get into downloading the SOS app to utilize that. But just looking at your ongoing maintenance and service costs, a design feature that has been inbuilt to all Fronius inverters since forever is making the inverters serviceable. So you're able to pull apart and replace parts within the inverter. And this can help reduce that levelized cost of electricity, which we've mentioned here, or your return on investment can be better if you bring down the maintenance costs. So it's important not to just look at the upfront CAPEX costs, but looking at the ongoing maintenance costs on commercial projects. This becomes a bigger factor as well because there's quite often ongoing maintenance contracts or performance guarantees. So you want to ensure the uptime of the inverters. So a good way of doing this is by having faster and easier service. So if there's ever a problem with the inverter, you can get it up and running faster. And this is easy to do when your inverters are serviceable, when you can actually replace the faulty part and install the new part and have the inverter up and running. And it means you only have to have one person going to site. And this is a big factor when you think about a 100 kilowatt inverter. They're big inverters and you don't want to be sending 3 guys to site just to swap out an inverter. That can be a huge costly exercise. And so if you only have to send one technician with the part to repair the inverter, that can be a big cost saving on your Opex. And of course, we've got the great SolarWeb system monitoring to help you identify if there is any issues with the system. You can do performance comparisons as well. All right, this is just showing that with the Tauro inverters, we are going to have all the spare parts available. If need be, we've got the power stacks, the pilot card, which is the newer version of the data manager cards. We now have in the Gen 24 and Tauros, what's called a pilot card. And then there'll be the control boards, and basically all the parts available for the Tauro inverter if need be. As you can see here, yeah, basically you should never need to swap out a full unit. It should only ever need to be a part that's swapped out. And that's going to help you guys with your ongoing maintenance costs, your Opex, by having that faster service. All right, that just about brings us to the end of the presentation. Fronius has always had this principle of 24 hours of sun, which means striving towards 100% renewables. So we're just part of this bigger picture of being able to get to 100% renewables, and we like to work with you guys to be able to achieve that. But yeah, thanks for your time. And Seb, if you had a chance to look at any of the questions on there?
Yes, thanks so much, Dan. There are a few questions, but looks like we answered everything. There is one question about the angle of the east and west facing for the case study. So that's the one thing that we need to check for you, but we'll get back. I think Jose Raymond asked this, so maybe that's something that we should follow up. I just need to check the details of this site. There's a question about I'm quoting 3 100 kilowatt system in the next 2 weeks for install early 2021. Or you mean, I think, early 2022, right? I have the same feeling. I feel like it's still 2021, but I think you mean early 2022. Will the inverter be available by then? So the answer is yes. So stock is landing, as Dan mentioned, like mid this month, right? There's more stock coming throughout the next few months. The one thing is all our sales partner will have basically a better overview of what has been already allocated. So if you have a project in the pipeline, what I would encourage is please get in touch with your sales partner and ask for pricing. If you can't, or if you have any hurdle, I will put like an email down here, which is our PV solution, our solution team, or like our application engineer and a solution team. So you can just send us an email and we can introduce you to a authorized sales partner, right? So I will just put that to everyone. So it's pv-solutions-australia@fronius.com. Just shoot us an email if you can't get pricing from your sales partner, and we will do the introduction there. All right, let's see if there's more questions coming in. Doesn't look like there's more question. No. Let's see if there's, yeah, we'll wait a couple of minutes.
Maybe the one from Lars about panels being basically free with STCs. I think when we're talking about commercial projects here, we're going into LGCs, like projects larger than.
Sorry, I lost you there. I think it's on my side with the internet connection. What was the question then?
Just the one from Lars about the panels are basically zero cost at because of STCs. But I think what we're looking at here is commercial projects that are bigger than 100 kilowatts.
Yeah, if you ask me where to use the Tauro, I usually recommend to have it like for system above maybe 300 kilowatt. But this is the thing, it really depends on the person itself. Like I know some people prefer to use 100 kilowatt on a 100 kilowatt system, and that's fine. You know, it's just per preference. For my preference, when people ask me, I like to use the 27 just because they're modular, you know what I mean, for the 100 kilowatt system. But yeah, we already have people doing like 250s or 100 kilowatt and a 100 kilowatt system. It really depends on your likings. In general, the savings that we are talking, the big savings is when you go for bigger jobs, 100% you will see those savings coming through. And I think one big thing that you mentioned then was the decentralized system. So when you use a combiner box in terms of labor, in terms of, if you have like a system where you need to run long DC cable and doing individual strings every time, it can be time consuming. So you want a bit of flexibility. And also maybe something to share with the people. I think we got this point in like a few weeks ago. Some people want to use bigger panel, which has a higher input current, right? With bigger panels, right? And when you have those panels, sometimes some inverters, which has a lot of trackers, can't deal with that. But for example, with us, even our direct connect, our input current is pretty high. And also, if you do combiner solution, then you don't need to really worry about this, right? So you just add all the current when you parallel it. That's the beauty of this option. So as you see, maybe to give the audience a bit more context, you will see that panels are getting bigger, meaning that the current also is getting bigger, right? And some inverter can't really deal with that compared to us. I think we already thought about this happening with panels becoming bigger, higher wattage. That's where our inverter can deal with that. So I think that's also a good thing for the market.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. All right, looks like there's no more question coming through. If we miss anything, guys, please just send us an email with this on this email that we sent. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending our training today. I can tell you that we are looking forward to get out on our side. So we know that it's the end of the year. I'm pretty sure all of you guys are pretty busy with installation. Everything is becoming hectic. Hopefully we'll see you before the end of the year, right? And if not, next year, definitely I would say will be the better year for everyone. Just stay tuned. We have a last webinar for this year, so stay tuned on our on Facebook and our let's say web page, right? There will be a last webinar for the year, but I'm really glad that you guys came to our training, and again, hopefully to see you all soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks, guys.